fellas, let's go. Here we go. Big play. Trips open right, 334 stretch, Z post, X stop, on two. Ready?
This is my dad's show.
It's called the Quarterback Dadcast.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. I want to say thanks to all of our listeners, thanks to all of our sponsors for all your support. We are continuing to enjoy this journey together, inspiring dads, but I want to take a minute now to talk about Acme Homes. You've heard me talk about them before, but I'm going to talk about them again. Bob Cumming, former college teammate, amazing leader, amazing home builder. They continue to take so much pride in the work they do, the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. Whether you're looking for a home up in Monroe, up in Sultan, up in Wenatchee, this is where they're doing their amazing things. So many people during the pandemic, as we have the ability to work from home, have decided to move out of the city to try to find homes where there's more acreage. Well, that's exactly what Bob and team at Acme Homes give you. So check out Valley Vista up in Monroe. Check out Daisy Meadows out in Sultan. And if you want to even go to Eastern Washington, check out Sienna Heights in Wenatchee. They're, again, amazing craftsmanship, amazing floor plans. You can visit them at acmehomeswa.com. And if you're interested in learning specifically about listings or mortgage opportunities, contact Jen at 425-308-8082 or Denise at 425-309-2318. So now, why are we doing a new ad? Because we want to talk about a partnership they have with Portage Bank. Kevin Jensen is one of the great lenders over there. He's the senior vice president. He's going to take care of you. And right now, if you obtain a mortgage through Portage Bank, Bob and team at Acme Homes are going to pay your $500 appraisal fee. I said that right. They're going to pay your $500 appraisal fee by buying a home through them, getting your mortgage through the folks at Portage Bank. So don't wait. Now's the time to contact Jen, contact Denise. Again, Jen's number is 425-308-8082. And again, Denise is at 425-309-2318. Visit acmehomeswa.com right now. Don't wait. Thank you again for listening to the Quarterback Dadcast. So with that, let's get right to today's episode. Hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox again with the Quarterback Dadcast. And as we get ready to wrap up season 2, we're almost right now. We're recording in November, but we're going to be listening to this next gentleman right around Christmas time. So hopefully you guys have been good, and Santa's going to treat you well. But our next guest is a very talented business professional. He's a sales professional. He also runs a great podcast called Grind, Sell, Elevate. We found out through the wide world of the internet, we found out we have a lot of similar contacts from guys like Scotty Least to Colin Mitchell. And our next guest, his name's Tyzer Evans. I think he goes by Ty Evans. We'll find out here in a second. But with all that great things we've talked about, we're actually here to talk about Ty the dad. And we're going to learn about how Ty's working hard to become that ultimate leader or quarterback of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Evans, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thanks, Casey. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Well, we always start, and is it Ty or Tyzer? Because I've not met too many Tyzers.
I know. It depends where you know me from, which state. Everybody in California typically calls me Tyzer, then everybody in Georgia, Texas, or around everywhere else calls me Ty.
Yeah.
So,
Tyzer's, I like that name. It's cool. I like. I have
you.
a son named Ryder, and there's not many. I think that there's more Ryders now, but I like names that are a little bit more uncommon. So, okay. So I like to start each episode with, what are you most grateful for as a father right now?
Oh, great question. I would say honestly, my kid's giving me serenity. With the chaos of work and life stressors. Just to be able, actually yesterday, stressful day, a lot of different things happening. We had a sick puppy, and we came home from the vet, and my oldest son, who just turned 7 this week, he was watching TV, and he goes, "Hey Daddy, can you come sit with me?" And it was just one of those moments where I was like, "Yeah, dude, yeah." And then everything else just kind of melted. He came up, and he's not one of those boys that doesn't like to cuddle with his dad. So he came up and cuddled with me, and, we just kind of zoned out and watched some cartoons, and it just, made the bad day really good.
That's the best, dude. That's like, I got gratitude. I got goosebumps out of that one, man. Well said. So I'm grateful. Yesterday, my son and I played in a 2-man scramble. For those that don't know, it's a golf tournament. And we played in probably the worst conditions in United States history. It was like I mean, standing water everywhere, standing water
Oh,
in the green, downpour. But it's like, I can't believe they didn't call it. They let us keep playing. And there was one time where I usually don't get too mad on the golf course because there's three words I like to follow, which is golf is hard.
right.
And, but I just hit this horrendous shot and I was mad. I snuck a little F bomb underneath my breath. And I'm like, oh, bud, sorry. That was not a good example. He's like, Dad, it's okay. This is a really frustrating game. You deserved it. And we started laughing. And, it was just a great like moment of, for me, I keep telling myself as this journey as a dad, it's not the outcome, it's the process, which is just like it's a journey. There's going to be ups and downs, but just focus on like continually doing the right thing that in the end we increase our chances for better outcomes for our kids. So that was my
Definitely.
gratitude towards him yesterday. Okay. Well, tell me about the key players in the Evans household. Who's on the team? What are their roles?
All right, so we've got obviously maybe me as the quarterback, and then it really is actually mom. Let's be honest.
She's a general
My
manager.
wife, yeah, that's true. She might be the owner. Um, so my wife Ashley, and then I've got two little boys, Knox who's 7, and then Nixon who's 5. So the 4 of us.
Cool. And did I hear a puppy in there too?
Oh yeah, we can't forget about the fur babies. I've got 3 dogs. We've got Athena, who's our oldest. She's an American Bulldog. She's 12, and then Honey, our little Chihuahua, who is 11, and then Slater, who is he's an interest. He fits right in with the boys. He's a 2-year-old American Bulldog.
Wow. You run like a zoo at the Evans household.
Yeah, and we got 2 fish, 2 beta fish. Can't forget about them either.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love again, in a good, I mean, this is a compliment, uncommon names. Those are cool, unique. Any history or behind that? Was it just creative names that you and your wife thought of?
I felt morally obligated having my name to, you know, name my kids something different. And, especially because it has helped me so much actually in my career. Because as long as I make a good impression, people, especially in sales, they don't forget me because of my name. So I wanted the kids to be able to have it stand out as well.
Hmm.
So Knox, yeah, I was working as a personal lines insurance agent in Oceanside, California, about 2009, and this gentleman came and sat down at my desk, and his name was Knox Williams, and I had the beautiful. He was 86. I had a beautiful conversation with him. I just never know. The guy was he'd started a 9-figure company, super wealthy, and sat there and just mentored me on life for about 90 minutes as a young man. And I just walked away from that conversation going, wow, that was impactful and something I'll never forget. And I loved his name. And so I said, my first son will have the name Knox.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Love that. And is Knox, the older gentleman, still with us? Do we know?
I do not know if he is or not, to be honest with you. Um,
Knox, if you're listening, much love to you, brother. I love when people make time to provide wisdom for us, and hope that there's maybe some younger dads listening to us. They'll gain wisdom from our conversation. Maybe I'll gain wisdom from our conversation from you. So, all right. So I want to go back, rewind the tape a little bit, Ty, and take me back to where you grew up. What was life like growing up for you, and then talk about how your parents had an impact on you now that you're a father.
yeah. So I grew up in a little town called Cloverdale, California. It's the last city in Sonoma County, right where Sonoma meets Mendocino. So you get a bunch of basically a bunch of pot and a bunch of wine. So uh, yeah, it was a blue collar town. We had a geothermal power plant, we called the geysers, and it's where most people worked. So, great people, salt of the earth type people. Town's about 5,500 people where I grew up. So, football, basketball, those types of sports are life. That's what everybody, as it comes as a community. Yeah, my parents divorced by the time I was 3.5. There's some addiction things happening that weren't good, and there's a big age gap between my parents of 15 years. So, my dad was 34, my mom was 19 when she had me, and had just enough time to have me and my little brother, and then they split. So, life was tough, until I, really until about high school.
Hmm. Talk about did you have a relationship with your father once they divorced?
Yeah, so I did. So that was a thing that was unique about my situation. My mom remarried pretty quickly, and so I had a stepfather, which was was tumultuous for the majority of my life relationship. But my dad was always my hero, irrespective of his own faults. And he really had to struggle with a lot of demons, but he was always there. So I can't. I got to give him that credit. He was showed up to every practice, every baseball game. He would work 10, 12 hours, and then he would drive 3 hours to a football game. I wouldn't say necessarily, especially growing up, wasn't always an ideal role model, but was always present. And then I actually ended up living with him in high school, and it was just him and I. And I think that really helped to our relationship a lot.
Very cool. I think we've talked a lot about episodes before on this podcast about being present, what it means to be present, and I think kids need that. And I love hearing you share that as well. Talk about some of the journeys of you growing up. How did your experience with your stepdad or your biological dad impact you as a father, and what have been some lessons you've learned through those experiences?
Um, it's a tough question, Casey. I've I think I learned more of what I didn't want to be.
Hmm.
As sad as that kind of sounds, in a lot of ways, then I learned what I wanted to be. You
Hmm.
know, and so I learned a lot about how do I don't use intimidation, right, to get your way as a parent. Don't ever lay
Hmm.
your hands on a kid as a parent. But I also learned a lot about work ethic and responsibility. Those two guys were guys that didn't call out sick. My dad at one point had literally torn half of his Achilles tendon, and still went to work. With it
Wow.
that way, and actually ruptured inside of his boot, and that wasn't a good situation. But so I learned a lot about work ethic. My dad is really hardcore about always being brutally honest, always being truthful. He always told me, as long as you don't lie to me, I might be upset, but I'll be 10 times more upset if you do lie. And so it's like I got caught ditching in high school. I said, hey, dude, I ditched, and he goes, yeah, I did too. Thanks for letting me know. Don't do it again. That was kind of his mentality. So that's the way I'm with my sons now. Those are things I've passed on to them. I tell them, hey, there's a truth or a story. Because if it's a story, you're going to be in big trouble. But if you tell me the truth, we can talk about it, right? There still might be consequences, but we can talk about it. And so those were really good lessons I learned early on that I've been able to pass on to my kids. But as far as the other stuff, uh, I had to wanted to be as far away as possible with how someone reacts to a little person, and what type of imprint that puts onto them as they get older.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of, as you're talking through this, you're making me think of other people I've interviewed, and even it's like some close friends um, who I don't know how. I mean, it sounds like your dad and stepdad were present at time, but I've had guys I interviewed like were zero. They had zero present father, and the impact that could have on someone. But it's like it almost creates this positivity of like I'm not going to go down that. I'm not doing that to my kid, and they've been massively successful in their own line of work, not just financially, but like just as a good human being. So, it's really cool to hear you use maybe some of the challenges or adversity in your childhood as a way to like be the best dad you can be, take those negatives, turn them into positives. I think it's cool. So shout out to you for doing that, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'll just share this one thing with you real quick. Is I think I realized at an early age that if you do drugs and you do alcohol, bad stuff happens, right? And so in high school, I was what we call straight edge. All my friends went and partied. They started experimenting with other things. And I just never did. I didn't taste a sip of alcohol until I was 20. Just because I saw that as the path you go down if you want to have a destructive life, and so I did everything impossible to not do that.
Yeah, it's yeah. We have alcoholism in my family, so I see it. It's something I'm always present of being just making sure. I mean, obviously, I've talked about this on other episodes. Like 2020, a lot of stress hit for people, COVID, and what's happening, and with the virtual world. And I think it's easy to a couple beers here, a couple beers there, and like I had to kind of like have a good self awareness check about, hey, you might want to put this in check a little bit,
Yeah.
because it can. So I think it's cool that you saw that as an early age. Are you still close? Are you, I mean, in relationship with your father as well still?
Yeah, I talk to my dad weekly.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Very cool.
he's right below you. He's in Medford area.
Okay. And what did dad and mom do for their jobs growing up?
So my mom was a health technician for our school district, so she was like the school nurse. Um, and now she's a nurse practitioner. And and that's a really cool story. I think that we kind of already touched on mine, or shared with each other. We can get into. And then my dad, he worked for PG&E, and then Calpine Corporation for 40 years. And then my stepdad worked construction.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned the story with your mom. Maybe let's dive into that.
Yeah. So, my mom was an incredible role model. She's had just an amazing journey as far as what she's been able to accomplish in her life and how many life lessons she's taught me. And I mentioned that she had me at 19. She met my dad when she was still in high school. And then so she got pregnant, immediately after high school with me. And both of my grandparents were alcoholics. And my biological grandfather ended up dying in a halfway house. All of her siblings, unfortunately, had addiction issues and got into recovery. So my mom had a really rough start as far as role models. And, then she meets my dad who's got issues, and she's already got issues at a young age. And I was about 5. She just kind of, she said, I looked at you and your brother, and I knew I couldn't go on with how I was living life because it wasn't fair to you, wasn't fair to your brother, and it wasn't fair to me, for the life that I want to be able to provide for you. And so, she at about age 10, she always had this dream of being an RN. And so she went back to night school, took one class, a semester's call she could do. She ended up having, I have another little brother. So she had 3 boys working full time, being a sponsor in the program. And she took a night class every semester for 10 years. And my freshman year of college, she entered the nursing program. She graduated high school at my age. I graduated high school when she was my age, so she was 37, 38 when she entered the nursing program, and then fulfilled her dream and became an RN, and then kept going. Then she went and got her BS, and then she went and got her master's, and then she became a nurse practitioner, right at the age of about 50. And it was just incredible to watch this vision that she had of, I want to be a nurse because I want to serve people and I want to help, and that's been her calling. And what she's done, while raising the kids and while raising a family and trying to put food on the table, which I'm sure was very stressful, a lot of the
Oh,
time.
can't even imagine. I mean, I know there's times where in my corporate job and now as an entrepreneur, and even like I do a lot of volunteer work on the side, like sometimes you're just like, wow, I've got a lot on my plate. But then I always like to tell this, how I get through like that 1440 mindset. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. Best part about it is it resets at midnight, and we have to change that attitude. But God, what a strong woman. How often have you talked to her about the impact that's had on you, maybe as a son, but maybe even now as a father?
Oh, a lot, um, my mom and I are really close. Like we talk probably 3, 4, 5 times a week. She's my real confidant, to get me anything I'm going through. And she knows how much I love her, and what a role model she's been. In my life, it's helped me to accelerate as a father and say in business, right, as a husband, because I cannot make excuses. And you watch what my mom overcome, battling addiction, battling a divorce, get into another marriage that was shaky for a long time, and still fulfilling her mission, her dream that she wanted to serve people. It's powerful. There was nothing that was going to stop her. So I can't be like, oh well, I can't do this. So I
Hmm.
don't play into my own victimhood, because my mom never did. She just rose above it, and she got it done.
Where do you think that drive came from that she has?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know. I think my mom's deeply spiritual, and I think that once she started to access, she's also a Reiki master, which is interesting, being a nurse practitioner. Having that yin and the yang, I guess. But I think that for her, when she started to access that other side of herself spiritually, she kind of realized that she was contracted here to fulfill certain missions. And so she really looks at like what she's manifesting, and when she sees a door, she's never scared to walk through it. excuse me.
No worries.
She wants to walk through that door and those opportunities. And so I think that she knows that the more she does that, it helps her spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very cool. As you think about, I guess just this journey that we're all on, you think about like lessons along the way. You've turned out, in the times we spent together, like sharp, got your stuff together. You went to school. Maybe just where did your inspiration to kind of get into the line of work you're doing now? And was it a lot of it from where you grew up? Was it through other mentors in your life? I'm just trying to understand kind of more about the framework that you have.
Yeah. So, I didn't know that I was going to get into sales. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get out of my hometown because I just saw it as a trap.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing positive that was really happening. There's a lot of great people, but I knew I had to get away from there. And so I left. I went to San Diego, 2 months after high school. And that was a great experience because I had the same friends since kindergarten, right? So I never even had to make new friends. And so I went there and, made some really great people and had an awesome time there. And I kind of just fell into sales. I ended up working at a surf shop and in college, and I started to win some sales awards. And I was like, I'm just selling surfboards and board shorts. This is pretty easy. And it was the first time I got a little taste of commission. I got paid like $8 an hour, but with my commission, I was making like $23 an hour. And I had never worked in the food industry, so that wasn't an option for me. And so as I graduated, I just started, okay, well, maybe I can apply this skill set in the corporate world, and how would that serve me? Because I had financial goals in my head that I wanted to make, and I thought that would be the best vehicle because I had, a bullshit degree of communications or something, So I said, okay, well, I can just hone in on this and hone into my craft, and that's kind of what I did. And then as I met my wife, my father-in-law, really became a great mentor and had me to start thinking bigger about, he seems like you have an entrepreneurial spirit. And it is someone that, same thing, came from a really small town in Ohio that, brought himself through law school. He went to NYU Law School, came out, got at a top firm as a contract lawyer, and then eventually launched out and became a wildly successful entrepreneur. And so getting exposed to how my wife grew up versus how I grew up, night and day difference, right? Like her parents been married for 38 years,
Wow.
incredibly successful with business. And so I said that it gave me more of a clear line of sight of what I wanted to build. And then I had, contact. I can call him on any business deal. He's there for me, financially, advice wise. And so that it's been a really powerful mentorship with my father-in-law.
That's so cool. I have kind of a similar relationship with my father-in-law, except not like for business, but more of like handy stuff. Like the dude is straight MacGyver. Like he can fix anything. I can fix not much. I'm a great sous chef or like a right hand man, but like if I'm the person that has to figure out how we can fix this, it's going to be a disaster. Like I know my gaps, but he just has an engineering mind. He was a pilot of like, bunch of years, but so it's always nice having a father-in-law that you can go to for support.
Yeah, absolutely. And just how to look at somebody and go, how have you created a successful marriage? And my wife like worships her father, and so that's important to me because watching their dynamic of their relationship and seeing how he interacts with his adult children, right? I think is still a representation of how he treated them when they're small children. So, he's a great model in all respects.
How did you and Ashley meet?
Oh, Match.com.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
Very cool.
I was living in Santa Barbara, and I don't know if you've ever spent any time there, but it's a college town, and so I was like, man, I was 28. I was like, I don't want to date college girls. So I was like, but it's also really hard to find professionals because you got to make a substantial amount of money to live there. So I was like, I'll try the online dating thing, and then sure. But she was in college. That's the irony of the whole thing. She was 22, so. But it worked out.
Shout out to Match doing your thing. Maybe we'll get a new sponsor here.
Exactly.
So talk about what I guess related back to your own fatherhood. My wife says she says we got 18 seasons to make an impact on our kids. You got what 11 seasons left with with Knox, 14 left with Nixon. But as we think about the lessons you've now even seen between Ashley and her dad, like what are some things, talk about some things you've taken away from their relationship that you really want to emulate or replicate for your own kids?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ashley will tell you, she's like, my dad just never got mad at me. When I
Mm,
knew my dad was upset with me, he did not yell. There was no threat of being spanked, anything like that. I knew my dad was upset with me when he stopped talking to me because he was disappointed. And she said that was like a way worse form of punishment. And I think especially as little kids, they crave our attention, right?
yep.
They crave it. And so I think that, not giving that to them versus you go into your room, or you spank them, like my 7-year-old, you could put him in his room for 4 days and he wouldn't care. That's the most resilient kid in the world. But me not giving him attention or me sitting him down and being like, hey, Knox, I'm really disappointed in that. He takes that to heart,
Mm,
and he really listens. Actually, this morning he's a daddy's boy. Knox is. He's like my mini in my shadow. Like the kid never
yeah.
leaves my side. And I told him, I said, hey, you kind of hurt mommy's feelings. You don't spend enough time with her. And so we had this one-on-one conversation, and he made her a card at school in art class. And it was just to her, which is abnormal. Normally I'm somewhere in the background, right? And and so I looked at the card and I go, hey, Knox, you made this just for mom. I go, love it. And he goes, yeah, you told me to spend more time with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was cool. I mean, it resonated with him, right?
Hmm.
And so I thought that was really sweet of him.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are just little, great little examples that are powerful. That, when kids are younger, they get taught it's so important to treat people the way you want to be treated, follow that golden rule. But like when they're living it out and they get to see it and then get the enjoyment out of serving through love, through our relationships we build, even with our mom, dad, or buds, I think that's so cool. And hopefully there's dads listening at home. These are just small examples that we can take, that Ty shared. As you think about, like, you got a lot going on, entrepreneurial, podcast, you got a new business you told me you're about to start, you got insurance work you do. I don't know what else you got going on. 17 other companies you have started, you haven't told me about yet. But like, how do you keep all that clear? How do you stay present at work and present as a dad?
It's extremely challenging. Um, well, I think that for me, I'm a huge believer in personal discipline. And so the more structured and disciplined my life is, more I can just stay present in the moment, because there's no guesswork, right? Um, so every morning I have to get up and I have to serve me first, because if
Hmm.
I serve me first, then I can be the best father, I can be the best employee, I can be the best business owner, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm going to be podcaster. So I always, from 4:45 to 7:15 is like my window to get my mind right. And so when I go into my work day, I can be present there. And then when I could spend, with my job, I could spend 15 hours a day doing it. But when it's 5 o'clock, I shut it down. It doesn't matter how much I still got left on my plate. I shut it down. I go downstairs. Nixon normally has already come up and told me what he goes to this little private school where he gets a color every day, and so he always wants to brag about how many pinks or purples he's gotten. And so we talk about, hey, what did you guys learn? We do the homework thing, and then we always make dinner as a family.
Mm.
And then, pretty much from 5 to 8, I'm just present with the family. I try to put the cell phone down. I don't answer work calls if people are calling me. And then when the kids go to bed, usually, my wife and I get back after it again. And cause she's an entrepreneur. And so, like last night, she worked till 11. I worked till 1 a.m. It's just, you just grind, but you still got
Mm.
to find time to be present.
So important. I want to tell a story about that in a second, but talk about where did that come from? Your journey is all the personal discipline.
Um, I spent a lot of my 20s, I think, blaming my childhood for my inadequacies as an adult, and going, well, I react this way because I was reacted to this way.
Hmm.
And I realized that all of my relationships were going to shit because of me, not because of anybody else. I was the common denominator. And I read the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it was the first time that it kind of just hit me, where I was like, man, it's me. I got to change me, you know, like
Mhm.
I can't be putting this on the girl I'm dating or on my mom or my dad or my stepdad. And so that was the first time in my life where I got to have this accountability for me. I got to own my stuff. And that was something my mom had been echoing to me, but I couldn't hear it, you know, because I hadn't suffered enough pain yet. I hadn't hit my low. And then once I hit that, I go, okay, well, what I'm gonna start taking accountability. And then that just kind of built. And then I got more into personal development and I started reading more books. The more books I read, then I started seeing more results. Right. And then I just started doubling down. Then I saw more results. And you know, after reading that book and starting to take my own self accountability, you know, magically my wife walked into my life 9 months later. You know, so I started seeing that. I started making more money. All those things, it just started clicking. Why wouldn't I do this? You know, it's better for me and
Mhm.
it's better for everybody around me.
Mm. What for dads listening at home that haven't figured it out yet, or struggling, or they have challenges and or adversity in their whether it's their personal life, their marriage, they're looking for some positivity. What are through your own journey? What might be some things they might want to be trying or doing differently to try to flick that first domino to get going in a different direction?
Yeah, stop looking at yourself as like one or two dimensional. You know, I think as men, especially and as fathers, we get really pigeonholed into like just we're just providers or we're just the disciplinary at home. You know, and that's like a really shallow way of living life. And really, like you don't value yourself, you know, enough. And so just
Mhm.
like what sets you on fire? You know, go do that. Go explore more of that. You know, and I don't mean just, you know, I know we're both sports guys, but like, again, it's like we make money, you know, we're sometimes either the fun dad or disciplinary dad is our job. And then a lot of us just kind of veg out in sports, right? Like,
Mhm.
no, man, like, what are you doing to really fill your soul? Watching football or basketball for me doesn't fill me up. You know, it's fun to escape a little bit. And so I would encourage people to start look at your own spirituality, look at the way you talk to yourself. You know, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel anxious? You know, how do you feel about your life? Be honest about that. How's your relationship with your wife? Are you still dating your wife or are you just with your wife? You know, I think that we
Mhm.
have to be really critical judges of ourselves and look at our inadequacies and then, you know, go do the work to fix it. Because the more that you fix it, the happier you're going to be, in my opinion.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox. I want to take a quick break to talk about my friends up at Catch Sitka Seafoods who continue to be just an amazing loyal sponsor. And for those of you who've tried it, thank you. For those of you who haven't, you're missing out. And now's the time to make sure that you visit catchsitkaseafoods.com and get some of those amazing smoked salmon. Get some of that amazing rockfish, blackfish, black cod, salmon, whatever it might be, whatever you like. But what's great about opportunities they have, now is the time to subscribe to a box so that you're going to get that reliable cadence of the best fish directly from the dock to the doorstep. And what's great about Catch Sitka Seafoods, they make it so easy. So those that maybe aren't the best chefs at home, who doesn't matter. They're going to give you this beautiful, nice laminated recipe card that tells you exactly how long to cook it, whether you're going to barbecue, you're going to bake, you're going to fry, whatever the way you want to do it, they're going to make it easy. So please visit them today, catchsitkaseafoods.com. Sign up for a subscription so that you know you're going to get the best fish delivered directly to your door. You won't regret it. And just like my daughter Riley says, Dad, I don't even like fish. And she does now because of my friends up at Catch Sitka Seafood. So with that, let's get right back to today's episode. Love that. I'm taking notes here. Dads, if you did not just write down, are you still dating your wife? Write it down now, because I've found, and I've continued to find that there was a guy I interviewed, and he asked a great question. He said, "How can I?" It was shout out to Matt Miller, a friend of mine. Actually, I do work with him at this company called Limitless Minds, and he said, "How can I be a better dad this week?" He asks his kids. He goes to his wife, "How can I be a better husband this week?"
Mm.
Like if you truly come vulnerable and authentic with that, you want to know, and you might not like the answer, but if you know, you start finding different ways to add value to the relationship, to the home, to yourself. Like for example, I just this morning, my wife's going through some health stuff, and I was like, "How can I be a better dad? How can I be a better husband?" She's like, "God," and she's like, "I'm like, I'll figure it out." And I just went around the house, look for shit to do, and
Yeah.
I had a gap between my last meeting and our podcast today. And I was like, banged out all these little chores around the house, just trying to do little things to like take that off of her. When in the end, that is going to create more happiness for us as a couple to spend more time doing things we want to do. Um, and I think about, ways that for those dads that have two kids, make sure we're being thoughtful about spending time with both of them.
Mm.
Getting creative time. Like I told my wife this morning, Ty, that, I've spent a ton of time with my son playing golf. He's a high school golfer, loves the game. I love the game. So selfishly, I get to play a ton of golf with him, but like, it made me think, my daughter's a hooper, loves basketball. I had something hit me today. Like, I've not spent enough quality time with her. And I told my wife, I'm like, this weekend, you're going to go just jump in the cart and drive them and just go play golf. And me and Riley are going to try to figure out something to do. I don't care if it's, we ride a bike, we go on a walk, we bake cookies, just something till we have her. And I think if we're that present, and I shout out to all these people I get to talk to, these dads, like that's helped me on my journey as a father, just be more present at home. So anyway, I just ranted right there, but you made me think of all these things as you're speaking to me.
No, it's powerful, man. I appreciate you sharing that because it is true. And I, like even though this podcast, I've mostly talked about Knox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Knox is my shadow. He's in love with basketball. I built a half-court basketball court from in the backyard, and Nixon though, it's interesting because Nixon's most like me. And so so sometimes it's like, I get more frustrated with Nixon because I can relate, right? And it's just like he's a mere projection of my own inadequacies that he shows me. And so that's hard for me to see in my own son a lot of the time, right? Because he exposes my weaknesses because I see them in him. And
that's hard.
Yeah, it is. And so, but I have to do the same thing. I have to consciously go, hey man, I can't forget about the little dude because he looks up to me just like the other one does. And, and he's a lot more artistic. He's a lefty. He walks to the beat of his own drum. He doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. He doesn't care. And I have to be conscious of that where I'm like, same thing with my wife. I have to check in like, hey, I got to take Nixon to lunch. I haven't spent any time with him.
Yeah. It's, you made me think like about when we see our own gaps and we see them in our kids and it's loud. It's so blatantly obvious. I'm like, shoot, like I see sometimes like organizational wise in school. I see like being forgetful of assignments. My son's a good student. He's, A's and B's, but there's times where he gets these gaps where he'll struggle, not because he's doing it on purpose. And I'm like, it's flashback to what I went through. I was a kid that did enough to get by. Not because I didn't care. I wasn't inspired by some of the subject I was learning until I got into, someone lit a fire into me and showed me there's opportunity to play football in college, and which I would have never thought in junior high. And then in business, when it's almost like adversity, someone tells you can't do it. And it's like, no, F you, I'm going to figure this out. And
yeah,
but that spark, but like when you see your kids struggle, I'll really check myself, Ty, and make me remember that it's about the process, not the outcome. This pain or failure, adversity is going to make them stronger. And the only way they're going to feel it, like I got through it, was going through it.
Yeah.
But it is tough. When you see them, your own gaps in your kids, it's tough.
It really is. But it's also like, I think it's a total blessing, right? Because then it's that reminder if you're present. And I think that's why it's so important at doing things like meditation, right? You start to become an observer of your thoughts as opposed to being your thoughts. And you're able to identify that in real time, and then you can course correct, which is really important, I think as a dad to be able to do that for yourself and for your kids.
Have you ever heard of the Hobb method?
No.
So it's a 4-minute meditation. I got taught through a few folks, and I've actually shared with some of the clients I coach. But I'm a big self-talk person. I'm guessing you are too. And our thoughts become things. I always say we're going to do things twice. Once we go see it in our head, and then once we actually go do it. But I don't do this consistently as I want. It just hasn't been a habit at times. There has been times where it has, but it's just a simple 4-minute meditation where the first minute you breathe. So dads, grab a pen. This is good stuff to talk about. But the first minute is you breathe. Second minute, you say, I have statements to yourself, physical, emotional, or opportunistic. The third minute is I am statements, physical, emotional, or opportunistic. And the last minute is I will statements. So speak into existence what will happen. And man, the times where I'm feeling a little wrapped around the axle or stressed, when I do that, I'm a much better person.
That's powerful.
Just calms me, I mean, I think that dads, if you're listening, you think about, if there's dads who exercise or you've worked out before, you don't just go into the gym and put 300 pounds in the bench press and bang it out. You warm up, up your chest, you maybe jog a little bit, but in work wise or parenting, right in the game. We're playing tackle football without pads on, or we're jumping right into work without even warmed up our mind. But how are we going to be our best version of ourselves? And the answer is you can't. So obviously Ty's talked about meditation he does. I've talked about time I've done this Ha method, very simple, easy to consume and immediately put into your life. If you tell me you don't have 4 minutes, you're lying to yourself. Everybody has 4 minutes. So
Totally agree.
I know, yeah. Okay. So before I forget, I want to, you talked about something earlier about shutting down at 5, and I love that you've figured that out. And obviously we're not probably perfect at that every night, but if we're intentional about it and present about it, I think it's so cool. Not only for your own health, your marriage, your family, you set an example for your kids. And I actually, Ty, I went through that when my son was, probably 11 months old. He's 15 now, but when he was like young, I was getting home at 6:30, 6:45. He's going to bed at 7. I'm like, this sucks. This is no way to be a dad. And when I then made the change to say, I got to leave earlier to get home so I can do these things, I had so much more peace. I had more opportunity coming at me. I was a better version. So I think it's awesome that you figure that out. And hopefully dads at home, if you've picked up something else from this episode, the time you're going to schedule for a meeting with a client, that 5 to 7 power couple hours with your family is probably the most important time you're going to spend out the day. So take advice here from Ty for doing that. So shout out to you, brother, for doing that. I want to hear about a time where Ty's maybe not the best dad or version of himself. And what are some things you're doing as maybe have our tough days? And my gap's patience, very present, self-aware about that. Like, tell me what comes to mind of an area of your dad game that you're really working on trying to improve right now that other dads might be able to relate at home.
Yeah, no, mine's the same thing. I would say is patience. Especially if I'm in the zone and the kids come home early. Because they usually come home about 3:34, and I've still got an hour, and I work from home. Right, you can see I'm in my office, and they pop up, and I'm on a meeting, or they're tapping on my door. And I start to feel like that. They start to get a little warm. Like, okay, what the, come on, man. Like, I'm working. and so that is can be really frustrating for me, because I'm such an A to B person, and I do not like distractions. I do not multitask. I'm very singular focused. And so when I get disruptive, even like, with the dog just barking right now, I can feel myself getting like real anxious, like, okay, he needs to, you know what I mean? And so when I start to feel that, I got to check out. And so when I start to feel like that anger, I don't want to have the explosiveness that I had experienced as a child. So I will walk myself into another room, and I will take 4 seconds to breathe in, 4-second hold, and 4 seconds out. And I'll do that like 5 times, try to just recenter myself, come back to center, and then I'll go back and re-engage. I have to do that. And I was not good at that the first, probably a couple years, especially when they're going through their 2s and 3s. I just didn't know how to deal with it. You're dealing with an irrational little human, running around, and it was hard, man. It was hard.
Where did that maturity of being taking a step back and removing yourself, where'd that come from? And how can we teach other dads at home to adopt that same mindset?
Well, I've been still in therapy, and flushing out a lot of the stuff that I went through. And so when you're for me, going to therapy and the type of work that I do with the therapist is, looking at the imprints that were laid upon me at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And so it's just like I continually go back to my 7-year-old self and go, man, if my dad reacted that way to me, how would I have felt as a 7-year-old? Whoa, that sucks, because I know exactly what it feels like. So I cannot, I just can't consciously know that then I'm repeating the pattern. And so once I wrap my mind around that, if I do this, my son will be in therapy, and that we have a clean start, we have a fresh start. And so it's my job, it's my obligation, my duty to make sure that he's not experiencing the shit I am right now as an adult. And so it's just taken me a while to grapple with that, but I've come full terms with it, and it's important I stick to it.
Well, I love the honesty, ma'am, and I think going to excuse me, I think going to therapy is a huge showing of strength that you're doing. You're showing it's okay that we all need help. That's why I'm part of the reason I do this podcast is to get dads who we get put as a label. We don't want to talk. We're supposed to be tough, gruff men and, squash our emotions and put them aside. But I think it's the exact opposite. I think dads who can talk about areas of their game they want to get better at, if you find even me, like I make fun of myself sarcastically, but like you get a good episode of Punky Brewster, I might tear up in that bad boy,
Yeah.
maybe some Family Ties. But I wrote down clean start in a huge circle because that is the opportunity. And even if you're a dad at home and you've made some mistakes, own them, go apologize, make it right. Don't just pretend it didn't happen and push under the rug, because if you can apologize, show the example of who you did not want to be, but show your kid on what you should be, and then change your habits going forward. I think that what a massive imprint that would have on a child.
Absolutely. There's no ego, right? Like
Nope.
there should be no ego in being a father. It's not about being a tough guy. It's
Nope.
about being present. It's about love. And so I think a lot of us, we try to always exude that, like you're saying, this tough exterior. You don't need to do that with your kids or with your wife. That is your one chance in life to be vulnerable and to express love in a different way.
Mm-hmm. No, so true. Okay, before we get into the lightning round, when I go completely random on you, talk about, if you were to try to summarize what we've talked about today in like some actionable tasks for dads to, maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice or nuggets of wisdom you might share, Ty, that they can take from our conversation on finding ways to be more present, a better leader of their home. Tell me what comes to mind.
Definitely what we talked about is, I don't care if you're not a morning person. I think that's an excuse. Get up, carve out time for yourself, get your mind centered, get your vitamins in you, get some water in you, and be ready to be able to present yourself, your best version of yourself every day. And that comes with starting with taking care of yourself, first and foremost. And so I just think, indoctrinating some self-discipline, some time to exercise, some time quiet, prayer, whatever you want to do. I think that would be my biggest piece of advice is to get up and have some time for yourself every day.
Okay. What else? Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, I think that you hit it on the head. I think that I think you have to acknowledge when you do screw up and show your kids that you're not perfect. They're not going to be perfect, and be vulnerable and, apologize when you're wrong. That shows a child how to apologize to their friends, to their siblings. I think that because I really do think that, kids really do hold their fathers, most of them, on a pedestal. And so the more that you can really show them that example of how to be just a good human, and meeting them at their level, is really impactful.
Very cool. You just made me think, have you ever shared an experience of failure with your kids at this? Are they too young yet?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One of the, do you mind sharing one, or if it's not too private?
Oh no! I mean, it's just a recent example I had to do around a football game, and so Knox was playing flag football, and he hadn't got a medal yet in the game, and it was a championship game, and he didn't want to go, and so I told him a story about how I had quit on something when I was a kid, and it was baseball. And so I expressed to him that I quit, and I quit too soon, and then I didn't get to reap the reward that I was really seeking, right? Because I was being a bad sport.
Mm-hmm.
And then my team went on, and they did a great job, and they got the trophies, right, and get the pizza party, and I didn't get to experience that. And so I just shared with Knox. I said, hey, you got to see this through. If you start something, you have to finish it. So we're going to go, and I want you to play. And so he grudgingly went. Not only did his team win the championship, he got the medal, championship game, and was player of the game. And he was
Nice.
elated. And so, I just expressed to him my failure. I didn't want him to repeat that little mistake. And then, on the way home, he was so happy. I go, aren't you glad you went, buddy? And he was like, of course. He hung up his medal in his room, his trophy and stuff.
That's great. Yeah, I think more. I was on a call this morning with some of my teammates at Limitless Minds. We talked about, we have a doctor on the call, and she said vulnerability and humility are our vulnerability and authenticity are our strengths. And I said, I love that. And I said that, for me, the epitome of leadership is vulnerability plus humility equals leadership. I always feel that's also the same equation for great relationships, not being afraid to go first, talk about what your gaps are. And you're right. You said our kids think we as dads are up on this pedestal and we're perfect. And I almost love sharing stories where I sucked, like telling stories of like, hey, bud, dad threw 4 interceptions in a football game before. Imagine how much dad got booed and how grandma had to just sit there and take it. That Jaycox, you suck.
Yeah.
Right. But what did I do in the second half? Did I quit? Did I come back? Or when adversity happens, or when my dad he applied for a TED Talk and he didn't get accepted. Well, maybe it was the wrong guy, wrong time, but I'm failing too. And I think more we can create those moments of, just that's life, but it's not, and like to the point you talked about, and it's not, if you're going to start something, make sure you finish it. Those same lessons are so powerful for our kids. So, all right, this is good. I got a ton of notes here. Now it's time to go into lightning round where I go random on you. Your job is to answer questions as quickly as you can. My job is hopefully to try to get a giggle out of you and show that I have severe brain damage from the hits I took in college.
Okay.
All right. If I was to come over to your house tonight, what are you and Ashley cooking me for dinner?
Chicken, asparagus, and probably Joaquin rice.
It's going to make my pee smell, though. I don't know why asparagus does that, but it does that.
It does.
So random.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Favorite 80s comedy movie?
I don't know, comedy, but Big.
Ooh, wow. Tommy Hanks?
Yeah.
Wow. That surprised me, but I appreciate the surprise. If you're going to book a vacation the next 5 minutes, where are you going?
Japan.
Okay. If there was to be a book written about your life, what's the title?
Keep going.
Okay. If there was to be now a movie made about your life, who's starring you?
I like Bradley Cooper.
Nice. I got a funny Bradley Cooper story. If you were to do anything else in life than what you're doing right now, what would be your job?
Coaching basketball.
Okay. What's the last song you've played in your phone that people would be surprised by?
Say the Name by Carrie Grossman.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Spice Girls, but you didn't. And last question. As you think about self-discipline, as you think about your morning routine, what is the one favorite thing you do in the morning that gets you ready to go each and every day?
My breathing exercise, the Wim Hof app, going through and doing my breath holds. It's a 10-minute exercise for me, and it's the mental struggle of that breath hold. It just sets the precedent if I'm gonna be a little B word for the day, or if I'm gonna get after it. And it's crazy. It's just a crazy mental little game I play with myself every day.
Love it. All right, lightning round's over. You made it out. You've made it out unscathed. I appreciate you hanging with me right there. Tell us how we can learn about you. If we want to learn more about how to find you online or learn more about your podcast, help me share that information with our listeners today.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I just have a website, tyzerevans.com. Just pictures of me and the family. You get access to a blog and all my podcast stuff. It's right there.
Okay. This has been fun. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for being honest. Thanks for helping inspire me and sharing stories that hopefully going to help other dads at home. It's November. We have a couple sponsors when this episode comes out. I want to make sure that we give much love to my friends at Catch Sitka Seafoods. If you're a lover of fish or have not tried fish, or you're looking to taste the most fresh fish, please give them a chance. It's an amazing experience. Small company that was impacted by COVID, but they're still doing great things. And I like telling the story where my daughter, she called herself a pizzatarian, meaning that she only eats pizza, but the freshness of Catch Sitka Seafoods, they've gotten her to actually try fish, and she loves her salmon, loves smoked salmon. And then shout out to my friends at Acme Homes, former college teammate Bob Cumming, for doing what you do. They have a great special right now where you can get a deal on financing through one of their lending partners. So make sure you can check them out too. And just can't thank them enough for their support of this podcast over these last year or two. With that, this episode's in the books. Ty, man, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and best of luck to you in the future, brother.
Thanks, Casey. Appreciate it.